I love that people start to talk about this one time, or that sushi roll that they just had at Sulu, or that beer that they drank at Shelter or 9 Mile. Like, those things matter to a community. That becomes the heart and soul of who we are, is those stories. All we are our stories. And without the development of those and our opportunity to consistently be connecting to one another, connecting with ourselves, like we lose the heart and soul of our community.
Welcome back to the Bamford & Co. podcast, Beyond the Keys. Today I'm here with one of my best friends, Steph Clovechok with Discover Saskatoon. Thanks for joining us.
It's so nice to be here in this little backyard setting. It's really a familiar place that I get to hang out with you.
Yeah, it is nice, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the more professional background.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other than like the picket fence and the
picnic tables.
Yeah, and those fluffy clouds over there.
I love this space.
Today, we're not going to talk as much about the podcast studio, even though I think it's an amazing place, and we feel fortunate to be able to record here. We're going to talk more about what Saskatoon has to offer, a little bit about maybe your background and how we stole you from Alberta, and what we're doing internationally to bring people to Saskatoon.
I love it. What an opportunity. And it's actually you that is a big reason that I'm here, Greg. And despite many of the details that are so entertaining that I'm not going to share today about our fortuitous meeting, I think it does speak to what you're trying to do here and the value that this community has, and why we are able to attract people from around the world. And it's because of our people. And it's people like you, and it's people like the folks that you've hosted on the podcast that are such a huge component of what makes Saskatoon a great place to live, to work, to play, to learn, and to come and visit. And I had no connection to this place until I was invited on a fishing trip back in 2016. I drove from Alberta, drove through Saskatoon, and I stopped for a moment just to sort of take a look at the city. And it was something that I think I had a perception of this place before I had arrived here. I certainly did, and didn't think much of it. And so I think that that's important for us to think about, in the value of tourism organizations like Discover Saskatoon. If someone in Canada or around the world has a perception of a place that isn't true, then who is going to change that perception? And it's usually the tourism organization. But after driving through the city that one fortuitous January day, I drove through Saskatoon, I drove up through PA. As I came into the boreal forest, I was shocked. I had no idea that this place was so diverse in its ecosystem and so beautifully robust in its people.
Yeah, it's amazing. When we explain this to people around the world, I mean, they look at it like we are the breadbasket of Canada, but at the same time, not many people talk about like the 100,000 lakes that we have, freshwater lakes, and then how much of it is covered by forest and so forth.
Totally. And just being on the edge of nature here in the city, there's just so much for us to do. 80 kilometers of pathway that span through the Meewasin Valley Authority, and just the ecosystems and biodiversity that exists along those pathways. There's birdwatching tours happening this weekend, because this is one of the only places in the world that you can see some of these birds. These are things that make this destination so unique, and something that was really exciting for me when I started to think about coming to live here.
It's very interesting that now it seems like Steph knows Saskatoon better than I do, even though I've lived here my whole entire life. So good for you. Bird watching for an ADHD guy. I mean, it's interesting. At the same time. What are the birds called?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Something about a waxwing, I think. But there are whooping cranes that
we have a ton of them.
Fly through here in the fall time, along with the sandhills. And again, people come from all over the world to experience this. And I think this is what's so interesting for me, and having 3 decades of my career being in tourism, is that when it's our own backyard, we very rarely see the value of the experiences that are afforded to us on a daily basis. And oftentimes we don't tap into those experiences because it's just in the backyard and it's what's always been there. But when we start to think about what draws people to a destination, and we see that people have waited their whole lives to see this one thing, or that they've been saving for their entire careers to come on one journey to Canada. It is a very humbling experience when that place is your place.
How often does that happen?
Here in Saskatchewan, it's not as often, and it's very niche reasons that people are coming here. So fishing and hunting for sure. Right. Saskatoon is the front door to this province, and so that's a really important role that we have when people are flying into our airport to head up north and go on that epic fishing trip or that epic mule deer hunting experience, and that certainly is a huge component of our province's draw. But we're lesser known to people, and that's why, again, tourism is so valuable. If we aren't telling the city's story, then who is? And oftentimes it is a perception, or, you know, sitting as a Canadian child raised in the 80s like we were, we saw those combines and those big wheat fields, and that was it. So when I was moving here, coming from Alberta, raised in the East Kootenays of British Columbia, the questioning faces that I was met with when I said, you know, I'm picking up my 2 young children and I'm moving to Saskatchewan was such an experience for me. Most people were sort of saying things like, okay, we'll see you in a couple months, or yeah, like you'll be back in a couple of years, have fun over there. And it was pretty quick that I realized I was never going back
How long
home.
have you been here for now?
Almost 8 years.
Wild.
Almost a decade.
It seems like it hasn't been that long.
It hasn't. Well, time flies.
Yeah.
When you're having a good time.
You're mentioning a little bit about bringing people to Saskatoon, and that Discover Saskatoon does a lot of, I guess, conferences and so forth around the world to be able to market Saskatoon to the world. Mm-hmm. Can you give some examples of that? We were just talking a little bit before, and we're talking about Dubai. Mm-hmm. And maybe get some concept of like the value Discover Saskatoon offers to our city, and then also bringing other things here.
Yeah, absolutely. Tourism is a bit of a misunderstood component of the economy anywhere that I've worked in tourism. And so what's really important is that we are an economic engine for the city and for the province. We're the province's 4th largest exporter, which means that we're taking stories from this city and we are exporting them into 8 international markets and across Canada, and then importing new revenues by way of visitation of people to our city. And so people are coming to our city because they're attending a business event. So the experience we were talking about in Dubai, we had a local leader here in Saskatoon who works in nuclear medicine and isotopic medicine. That individual and those teams of people who are researching at the University of Saskatchewan, who are working at Innovation Place or the Sylvia Fedoruk Center, are doing some of the world's leading research in isotopic medicine. And so our job as Discover Saskatoon and the team of people that I am so fortunate to work with are constantly investigating and unraveling the stories of this place. We're unearthing the storytellers so we can say, hey, there's a conference for literally everything. And we know that this global conference happens every year. It's happened in Korea, it's happened in China, most recently I think it was in Greece, and now we are vying for it to be in Saskatoon. And we have resources that are made available to Discover Saskatoon through our partnership with Saskatoon Destination Marketing Hotels that allow us to send that individual from the Sylvia Fedoruk Center to Dubai to pitch Saskatoon on the global stage. And then we would, if we are successful with that conference, be able to host upwards of 500 to 600 international delegates here.
Oh, that's amazing.
On our soil. And so, it becomes more than just the business event. It's those individuals flying into our airport for the first time. Wow, this is beautiful. Driving downtown, seeing the city, the river, eating in our restaurants, shopping in our stores, exchanging conversations with our people. And all of a sudden, if they had no perception of us, then they have one, and they start to see the value of our destination. And not only are they spending money and thousands of dollars in our city over the course of a week after they've flown in from some international destination, but they're thinking about this place from an investment perspective, or maybe they want to come here and they want to research or work in their field here in Saskatoon. And so the impact and that trickle effect of that one visit is incredibly powerful.
It's amazing to think that many people can come here. I know that at one point, some of our establishments, like TCU Place, was leading edge, mm-hmm. right? And at the same time, when was that? Do you know when? Like, because that was when that was done. we are kind of the destination for a lot of conferences and so forth, right?
Yeah.
And so where do we sit compared to other places now in Canada?
Infrastructure matters, and the experience that people are looking for depends on the value of the infrastructure and the capacity that our infrastructure has to host people and add technology and add new leading opportunities for people to experience a conference. And our current infrastructure is paling in comparison to other destinations in Canada. And there is a massive conversation happening in this city about a downtown entertainment district. And it is one that we must have if we are going to continue to compete on the global stage. And not only that, our resources have to be able to keep pace with the resources that other destinations have in order to attract that kind of business as well. And so we are in tourism, everything is a partnered endeavor. We do nothing without partnership, whether it be with the City of Saskatoon, Tourism Saskatchewan, the Government of Saskatchewan, Ag West Bio, the Saskatchewan Industry Mining Association. We are all partnered all the time. And so to enable these things to happen, the resources and the infrastructure has to match. And right now we are not keeping pace.
Yeah, it's, with technology, you look into kind of what other, I guess, countries are offering too as well, right? So it's like, if you're looking on a global base, you mentioned Dubai. I can't imagine the event centers that you have in Dubai, or like I've been to a lot in Las Vegas and so forth, because they're continually, it's all about bringing people there, which then spend money, and then it goes into their GDP and so forth,
100%,
right?
yes.
If you look at concerts like Taylor Swift, the capacity that she needs to be able to go to a market, then how much did she bring into Vancouver, or what was the factor that it's crazy amount of money, right?
Millions and millions of dollars over the course of 2 days. And so you think about that volume of insertion into an economy. It is incredible. I was in Vancouver during the Taylor Swift concert. I didn't go, but room nights shot up from about $289 to $400 to $1,500 a night. Every hotel was full, every restaurant was full, every bus and motor coach was full. And while that can be felt as compression for that period of time in an economy, it is the most valuable insertion of new money. When we think about how we generate visitation, Saskatchewanians travel the most within our own province, which is awesome. However, that's like my money into your pocket over into Gary's pocket, and that is not the
Gary
greatest.
Likes money in his pocket.
I know.
Yeah.
So what we want new money. We want new injections of revenue and capacity into our economy. And just last weekend, the Jelly Roll concert, almost every hotel room was full. That was on top of the Freddie Sasakamoose tournament that was here. That was on top of a huge national cheer competition that was here at TCU Place. And so when we think about...
And we were at Lugo.
And Lugo at Remy Modern, when we think about a vibrant community, I really hope that people can start to expand their thought process around the infrastructure needs, because it's not just about the hockey games. It's not just about the arena. It's about creating vibrancy and vitality to ensure that a community flourishes. And that's not just for, the people who go to Lugo. That's not just for the ticket buyers at the concert. Imagine if 14,000 people spilled out of SaskTel Center on Saturday night and were able to go and eat and drink and walk and hear music on the streets. Imagine what that experience would be like just for the heart of our city, never mind the people attending the conferences.
Well, it's a great point, because what I find is that, if you're looking to go to a concert right now at SaskTel, and you've had something to drink, now you're looking for a cab, but you're probably not going to always go downtown. You're going to then usually go home, and it's not like you can just walk to the next venue.
That's right. And visitor experience matters. When you're traveling to a place, and if your visitor experience is challenged, you're going to be like, oh, I don't want to go back to that place, or I'm not going to choose to spend my money in that place if I can't easily get there, if there's no public transportation, if, it's a challenge and I waited for a cab for 1 hour after the concert. Of course, you're not going to go back downtown and re-engage in your evening. And so when residents of the city are considering the opportunity for us to have downtown infrastructure. It's not just about the one or two buildings. It's about everything that happens afterwards. It's about creating a place that people want to move to and live, so our young people aren't like, hey, I'm going to Alberta.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to go over to BC. That's important. That matters for us to keep our people here and attract people to come.
I totally agree. For some reason, it just popped up Vegas. How easy it is to get from one place to the next, and it's like you just have dinner and then you're walking to the next hotel or to the next bar or whatever the case is, and it's just so easy.
So easy. Vegas is a very contrived, situation and an experience. And what is so unique about this destination is that our infrastructure allows for us to move people through our destination to allow for a very urban experience. Some of Canada's top restaurants are in this city. Some of Canada's top chefs are leading in the culinary experience in this country, never mind the opportunity that they have to draw from Canada's richest agricultural sources. But then you can go for a walk along the river. You can hop on a paddleboard and float. You can hit the prairie lily, and then you can go for a walk. The nature-based experiences alongside those urban experiences are very hard to find in other urban centers in Canada.
Yeah, we were just out at Sulu, a new restaurant that just opened up, and I think it's my favorite restaurant right now. So,
hands down, mine too.
Yeah. So, but the nice thing is, like, don't we have the leading amount of restaurants per capita in Canada, which I find absolutely amazing in Saskatoon.
Yes, and the question becomes, does that matter to us? Does it matter to us to have the most restaurants per capita in our city? Because if it does, then we have to be concerned about filling them.
Well, that's true. Yeah, very true.
That doesn't just happen organically, and that's why
and you can only spend so much money going out all the time to eat, right? And so then how do they all stay afloat?
We need to bring people here.
Right.
And the demand generation that Discover Saskatoon does on behalf of this city is essential, not just for the hotel rooms, not just for the conference centers, but those small and medium enterprises that rely on volumes of people to consistently be opening their door and sitting down in their seats, taking the tours out on the trails, or going on that blackstrap. There's an amazing experience happening in blackstrap right now where you go and you do like breath work, and then you sit in a sauna, and you tap into those wellness experiences and the stories of our local people.
What are those sleeping pods?
The big domes.
They're
like geodesic domes. Yes.
Whatever.
Have you been out there?
I haven't.
It is so awesome.
I sent him a message the other day, and he said, "Oh, Bamford, sorry for not getting back to you." And it was like, "Come check it out," because I was asking about, ask him about the saunas.
Yes.
I think, and he was like, "It's free to use if you get one of these."
Totally. Yeah. And what an amazing experience to have in your backyard. You do not need to go, into the Canadian Rockies, for example, where those experiences are quite easily accessible. But sometimes they're costing, upwards of like $2,000 a night.
Really?
So
do you know the cost for blackstrap?
I do, and I would suggest that it's definitely not $2,000 a night, but the experience is just as valuable and just as great.
Well, Caroline and I went out there just for a sunset one time, and she's like, "I love this place." Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
The sky in this province. I went home to the mountains last summer, and I missed the sky. That's something that people come to see. We've hosted a few different clients from many different countries, and one experience that I'll never forget was we were hosting clients from Korea, and I took them out just for a drive in the evening. And one became so emotional when she was looking at the sky. And of course, the sky was beautiful and starry. And she was like, "I've never seen the stars before." In her life, she had never seen the stars. And that is something that we take so much for granted. I mean, last weekend, all of us were out on our back decks watching the northern lights from the city.
I missed it, so I didn't. Thanks for phoning me and telling me they're out, so that you're not a nice friend anymore. But it is amazing, and then how clean the air is. Like, we don't really have pollution like a lot of other major centers within in the world.
No, and we hear that when we host conferences as well, and just the connection that people feel when they're in TCU Place for a day and they're receiving just world-class service, or up at Prairieland Park and they go and they walk our streets and they meet people like you, and they have a conversation and they're like, "Wow, I can breathe here. I can breathe here." And it's not just the quality of air, it's just this expansive feeling of hospitality and this pride we take in being Saskatchewanians and being kind and humble and generous, and that goes a long way. And again, if we aren't able to share that and articulate that, then we keep ourselves at a very specific spot in the world, which is, not really heard or not really understood and not of value. And we want to tell that story around the world.
Well, thanks for being the CEO. I appreciate it.
Thanks for helping me get here.
Thanks for not leaving. I guess another thing that I was wondering, and especially for our clients, for ourselves, even for people that are living here in Saskatoon, you always hear about an event, but sometimes you hear about it after it's done, right? You're like, why didn't I go to that event? And everybody's like, oh, it was the best concert or something. Where do we find all these events, right? Like, I mean, it's like, I believe you guys have a page, right, that you guys do. And is there any other pages to kind of follow, or how do you find all these events so you don't miss out?
Yeah, for sure. That's such a great piece of feedback where I hear people say, like, if you had only marketed it better. So if you're not listening to the radio, then listen to the radio. DiscoverSaskatoon.com is the best place for us, from a website perspective, a digital landscape perspective, to learn about what's going on. And it's also a place where you can really connect with those storytellers and see, there's these people offering these experiences that you really want to connect with. So, of course, the website. You can learn more about our partner hotels there, but our social channels are such a great place to follow along, whether it be Facebook or Instagram. Just really to know what's upcoming, but also what you can participate in and how you might get involved in the tourism sector, how you might start to participate in it. There's always volunteer opportunities with these conferences. We've got a huge conference coming up in June and July, and of course YXE Urban Games in its second year, and these are great opportunities to become involved in your community and give back a little bit.
And then you got the Jazz Festival in Victoria Park, right? I think that's probably my favorite park.
Oh, the lineup just came out. Did you see it?
Yep. So here's the funny thing I find about music, because Tyler, and you got Kurt, you got Sean, you got all these guys that are friends of mine that are on the board, but at the same time they know the music. I have no idea, and I'm always like, can you just play some of these songs, because you could put out a name and I have no idea who they are. So I was just like, throw it out for us people that don't have a clue what this is, because once we hear that song, we're like, oh, I know that song. I go to that concert. And it's just feedback that I have that's just maybe a little bit different, because I love going to live events, but I just don't know the names of the bands.
And I love people like you, because it doesn't,
you
don't need your guy up there, your artist up there. It's just that you go for the experience. And so I think that many people are sort of waiting to see if they know somebody on that lineup, but it is the full experience of Jazz Festival that one must go and have. And I love jazz in Victoria Park. Oh man, is that cool to see it just expand out into the space, the river in the background, and just all of the vendors and the experiences. It was so awesome last year. And I was just actually going to try to buy a car on the weekend. And I sat down at the car dealership, and the guy asked me what I do for work. And he said, oh, you must be responsible for jazz. And I said, no, not at all. And he was just going on and on and on about his experience. And he was watching Jewel in the Rain, or Melissa Etheridge in the Rain. And
we were there for that.
Right. And so without any of that, those stories get lost. I love that people start to talk about this one time, or that sushi roll that they just had at Sulu, or that beer that they drank at Shelter or 9 Mile. Those things matter to a community. That becomes the heart and soul of who we are, is those stories. All we are our stories. Right. And without the development of those and our opportunity to consistently be connecting to one another, connecting with ourselves, we lose the heart and soul of our community. And that's why tourism is such a cornerstone of any community.
So if someone's a new resident or someone new to Saskatoon, is there any kind of packages you have that someone can come and pick up from Discover Saskatoon?
Totally, yeah, absolutely. We have a full visitor center in our office space, and so that's all destination information, and our staff members there are amazing. And so basically somebody walks in there, you could spend anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour with one of our team members just talking about what you like and where you want to go and where you want to experience and how you can get involved. There's so many community organizations that you wouldn't know about without asking that question, like the Ukrainian Community Center, and some of the Ukrainian museums, for example, are doing, what are they called? The Ukrainian painted eggs during Easter time. They're doing workshops for families to go and paint these eggs. I would not know that.
I think I think I did one in art class, and so then you hollow it out and you take the egg yolk out.
I
And
think
then
that's the most basic Easter egg making technique. Yeah, but these ones are beautiful and
I
very.
take that as an insult. I thought I was super special there for a second, but I appreciate you bashing me there. Well,
It's okay.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is that
Yeah.
there's these individuals in our community that are like leading in something, and it really opens our eyes to who is in this community, you know. And there's just so much going on that you've really got to peel back the curtains on.
Well, you know, I think we could go on forever about this.
Sport.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about sport.
Sport. What
Yeah.
would you like to talk about on the sports side?
How valuable it is to a community and the role that tourism plays in sport. You know, from whether it's the World Juniors or it's Hockey Helps the Homeless. You know, we really are such a sport-based community. And now that I am a parent of 5 young women playing volleyball, seeing the volume of people that come into a community just as sport tourists, that's huge. Our grocery stores are full, our restaurants are full. But what I think is so incredible, especially with what's going on with Hockey Helps the Homeless right now and the work that you guys are doing there, is that the community then gets to give back. So economic impact, yes, but then there are always these opportunities where the community is being inserted with these opportunities to give back to what is needed the most. And seeing all of those NHL players coming into Saskatoon and telling their stories, and seeing all of you guys, old men, playing hockey for the weekend, you know, like it is.
Okay, you know,
such
I don't think I'm old, but thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, appreciate
I really
it.
think that you guys are great out there, and I want to use that as an example because the impact goes beyond what you can see. The organizations that you're raising money for right now as a result of this hockey tournament, which is essentially a tourism initiative, is going to be huge for those organizations receiving that money afterwards. And we've seen that be very successful. And, you know, we're hosting conferences where each delegate is responsible for $25 to the White Buffalo Youth Center, for example. So
Amazing.
500 people times $25 isn't a lot out of their pockets, but that means a lot for that organization. And so the
We've
impact.
talked about this in the past, that you're going
Totally.
to implement these things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's happening.
So good on you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we could go on about this and about charities and about everything else. I mean, we are excited to play in Hockey Helps the Homeless. And we do want to create awareness of the organizations, the YWCA, the Food Bank, and the Friendship Inn, and the amazing work that they do to be able to, like, we talk a little bit about, I guess, the entertainment district, right? But there's a lot of people that are struggling downtown too. And so that's maybe a different conversation. But I mean, these are things that we need to do to be able to support the organizations that support the most vulnerable in our
100%.
community, right? So,
Yeah. At the core of what we do, and this is something that we talk about a lot, my team, our boards, if our community is not whole, then we still have work to do. And authentically, if we are going to be representing this destination, we must talk about those things. We have to address those things as a community. And so many people don't understand why, you know, Steph Clovechok and tourism is involved in a homelessness discussion, or why we're involved in trying to find solutions that allow for people who are experiencing vulnerability to have better supports. But again, as a community-based organizations, we are a community shared asset. And if our community is not healthy and whole, then we have so much work to do still on behalf of this community. That's it.
I agree. So thanks for joining us for what was the Steph, CEO of Discover Saskatoon. And now you have a place to be able to find all those amazing events that happen here in the city of Saskatoon. And so if you want to follow us on any of our social media platforms, Bamford & Co. is the company. Beyond the Keys is our podcast. We're going to be tagging Discover Saskatoon into this. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you.